Start talking at home. The knot in my stomach tightened whenever English words hovered on my lips. I wanted to speak fluently, desperately, but an invisible wall always held me back. "I don't want to make mistakes," I'd whisper to myself, yet the fear of embarrassment paralyzed me completely. Why was it so hard? This silent struggle defined my days, a constant frustration I carried. Every interaction felt like a test, a potential pitfall where I might stumble and fall. I'd rehearse sentences in my mind, perfect phrases, only for them to vanish the moment someone addressed me. The why echoed relentlessly. Why couldn't I just articulate my thoughts? This internal battle was exhausting, draining my confidence with each passing moment. My daily day's struggle wasn't just about vocabulary or grammar, it was deeply rooted in a profound fear of judgment. I constantly questioned my abilities, always believing my English wasn't good enough, despite years of study. This cycle of self-doubt kept me trapped, isolating me from opportunities to truly connect with others. I watched others converse effortlessly, their words flowing like a river, and wished for that same freedom. My English was technically decent, perhaps even good on paper, but when it came to actual speech, I became a different person, hesitant, timid, and ultimately silent. This discrepancy was my biggest frustration. The weight of unspoken words grew heavier with each passing day. I knew the solution lay in speaking, yet the thought alone sent shivers down my spine. It was a paradox. To improve, I needed to speak, but my fear prevented the very act of speaking. Something had to change, and soon. One quiet evening, tired of my own mental prisons, a thought sparked within me. What if I removed the external pressure entirely? What if I started somewhere safe, where judgment was impossible? The answer was surprisingly simple, yet profoundly liberating: start talking at home. The idea felt awkward initially. Talking to myself? It seemed silly, almost childish. But what did I have to lose? My current approach clearly wasn't working. This small, brave decision marked the true beginning of my fluency journey, a turning point I would forever remember and cherish. My first attempt was tentative. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, my reflection staring back, a silent accomplice. I whispered a simple greeting, "Hello, how are you today?" My voice was shaky, unfamiliar. It felt strange, like hearing someone else speak, but I persisted, taking a deep breath. Slowly, the whispers turned into soft murmurs. I described objects in my room. "This is a lamp, it provides light. That's a book, full of stories." I wasn't aiming for perfection, just aiming to make sounds, to hear my own voice forming English sentences. It was surprisingly freeing, this private practice. I started implementing small, talking tips. One tip suggested narrating my day. So, as I brewed coffee, I described the process aloud. First, I boil water. Then, I add coffee grounds. It felt clunky at first, but with each repetition, the words began to flow a little more smoothly. Another tip encouraged thinking aloud in English. This meant mentally translating my internal monologue, then voicing it. If I thought, "I'm hungry," I'd say, I am feeling hungry now, perhaps I should prepare a snack. It challenged my brain in a new, exciting way. The focus wasn't on being perfect, but on being consistent. Every day, for at least 15 minutes, I committed to speaking English aloud at home. Sometimes it was just describing my surroundings, other times, I'd invent conversations with imaginary people. The key was simply to speak. This consistent, low-pressure practice was the foundational, how to improve your fluency, step. It built muscle memory in my mouth and tongue, familiarizing them with English sounds. The fear of external judgment slowly began to dissipate because there was no one there to judge. Soon, I realized the power of linking reading with speaking. My coach always said, "Why reading is important," and now I truly understood. I started reading English articles and books aloud, paying attention to pronunciation and intonation. This enhanced my vocabulary and sentence structure. Reading aloud wasn't just about sounding out words, it was about internalizing the rhythm of English. I'd read a paragraph, then try to summarize it in my own words, further solidifying my understanding and forcing me to actively use the language. It was a powerful fluency booster. My daily struggle didn't vanish entirely, but it transformed. Instead of struggling with silence, I now struggled with finding the right word or phrase. This new struggle felt productive, a clear sign of progress, a challenge I was willing to embrace head-on. I started actively researching how to learn words more effectively. Instead of just memorizing lists, I focused on context. When I encountered a new word while reading, I'd look it up, use it in a few spoken sentences, and then write it down in a phrase, not just alone. Flashcards became interactive. Instead of just defining a word, I'd say the definition aloud, use the word in a sentence, and even act out its meaning. This multisensory approach made vocabulary acquisition much more engaging and, crucially, more memorable for me. The advice, listen and practice, resonated deeply. I immersed myself in English podcasts, movies, and YouTube channels. I didn't just passively listen, I actively mimicked speakers, trying to match their pronunciation, rhythm, and stress patterns. This was called shadowing. Shadowing was a game changer. I'd listen to a short phrase, pause, and then repeat it exactly as I heard it. This helped fine-tune my accent and intonation, making my speech sound more natural. It was challenging, but the improvements were almost immediate and noticeable. I began recording myself speaking, something I initially dreaded. Listening back was often uncomfortable, highlighting mistakes I didn't realize I was making. However, it was also incredibly insightful, showing me specific areas that needed improvement, a crucial self-assessment tool. Reviewing my recordings became a regular practice. I'd identify recurring errors, then dedicate time to correcting them, repeating the correct pronunciation or grammar structure until it felt natural. This objective feedback loop was vital for continuous, targeted improvement. The question, why you should practice speaking, became self-evident. Each session, no matter how small, chipped away at my fear and built a layer of confidence. Practice wasn't just about getting better, it was about building resilience and belief in my own abilities. My home became a language laboratory, a safe haven where experimentation was encouraged and mistakes were welcomed as learning opportunities. The pressure was off, allowing me to explore the language freely, without the crippling fear of public scrutiny. I started imagining scenarios and role-playing conversations. I'd pretend I was ordering coffee, asking for directions, or giving a presentation. This mental rehearsal, voiced aloud, prepared me for real-life interactions and built my conversational stamina. The very interesting story of my transformation wasn't a sudden burst but a gradual blossoming. Each small, consistent effort compounded, slowly but surely turning my hesitant whispers into confident declarations. The journey itself was the most fascinating part. My fear of making mistakes, once an insurmountable barrier, began to shrink. I realized that mistakes were not failures but stepping stones, indicators of where I needed to focus my attention. This shift in mindset was as important as any specific technique. I started celebrating small victories. Successfully completing a 2-minute monologue, articulating a complex idea, or simply pronouncing a difficult word correctly. These tiny triumphs fueled my motivation and reinforced my commitment to consistent practice. The isolation of practicing at home also gave me courage. Knowing I could perfect my internal voice before exposing it to the world provided immense comfort. This gradual exposure built a robust foundation for future, more public speaking endeavors. My internal monologue, once dominated by self-doubt, gradually shifted to positive affirmations and constructive self-correction. The voice in my head became my biggest cheerleader, not my harshest critic, a truly empowering transformation. I began seeking out low-stakes opportunities to speak outside my home. Online language exchange groups, for instance, provided a bridge between private practice and public interaction. The anonymity offered a layer of comfort similar to my home environment. The first time I joined an online conversation, my heart pounded. But thanks to my extensive home practice, the words didn't entirely desert me. I made mistakes, yes, but I recovered quickly, and importantly, I kept speaking, overcoming the initial surge of fear. My conversation partners were incredibly supportive. They understood the struggle, having been there themselves. Their patience and encouragement reinforced the positive feedback loop I had established at home, further cementing my growing confidence. I applied all my talking tips in these new settings, listening actively, asking follow-up questions, and not being afraid to ask for clarification. These practical applications solidified the theoretical knowledge I had gained from my reading and listening practice. The concept of how to improve your fluency expanded beyond just speaking. It encompassed active listening, thoughtful questioning, and embracing the entire communication process, not just output. It was a holistic approach to language mastery. I also noticed that, why reading is important, wasn't just about vocabulary, it exposed me to different conversational styles and structures. This breadth of exposure made me more adaptable and articulate in various speaking situations, enriching my discussions. My daily day's struggle transformed into a daily learning adventure. Each interaction, each new word learned, each mistake corrected, became part of a fulfilling journey towards mastery. The struggle was no longer a burden but an exciting challenge. I started to truly enjoy speaking English. The apprehension that once crippled me was replaced by genuine excitement. Each conversation felt like a small victory, a testament to the persistent effort I had invested in myself. My interactions became more natural, less forced. I could articulate complex thoughts without lengthy pauses or constant self-correction. The words flowed, not perfectly, but with an ease I never thought possible just a few months prior. Friends and family began noticing the change. "Your English is so good now," they'd exclaim. Their compliments were encouraging, but the real reward was the internal satisfaction of finally being able to communicate without fear. My very interesting story became a source of inspiration for others struggling with similar fears. I started sharing my methods, emphasizing the power of starting small and consistently practicing in a safe, judgment-free environment. The journey wasn't over, but the biggest hurdle, the fear of speaking, was well behind me. I had moved from paralysis to purposeful action, from doubt to genuine confidence. My voice, once silenced by apprehension, was now unleashed. I continued to integrate new, talking tips into my routine, constantly refining my approach. Language learning is a lifelong journey, and I was now equipped with the tools and mindset to continue improving indefinitely. My daily struggle transformed from a battle against myself into a joyful pursuit of mastery. Challenges were now opportunities, and mistakes were simply data points guiding my continued growth and development. The process of how to learn words evolved into an organic part of my life. New words no longer felt like daunting tasks but exciting discoveries, seamlessly integrated into my expanding linguistic repertoire through consistent use. And most importantly, why you should practice speaking became my personal mantra. Speaking was the ultimate goal, the bridge to connection, the key to unlocking my potential in a global world. It was liberating. My voice, once timid and hesitant, now projected confidence and clarity. I could engage in complex discussions, share my opinions, and participate fully in English-speaking environments without a hint of the fear that once dominated me. This very interesting story is proof that small, consistent steps, fueled by a genuine desire to improve, can lead to incredible transformations. It's about starting where you are, using what you have, and never giving up. The journey from silence to fluency was long, filled with small triumphs and minor setbacks, but every single moment was worth it. I am no longer afraid to make mistakes, I am eager to learn and grow, one spoken word at a time. I started actively researching how to learn words more effectively. Instead of just memorizing lists, I focused on context. When I encountered a new word while reading, I'd look it up, use it in a few spoken sentences, and then write it down in a phrase, not just alone. Flashcards became interactive. Instead of just defining a word, I'd say the definition aloud, use the word in a sentence, and even act out its meaning. This multisensory approach made vocabulary acquisition much more engaging and, crucially, more memorable for me. The advice, listen and practice, resonated deeply. I immersed myself in English podcasts, movies, and YouTube channels. I didn't just passively listen, I actively mimicked speakers, trying to match their pronunciation, rhythm, and stress patterns. This was called shadowing. Shadowing was a game changer. I'd listen to a short phrase, pause, and then repeat it exactly as I heard it. This helped fine-tune my accent and intonation, making my speech sound more natural. It was challenging, but the improvements were almost immediate and noticeable. I began recording myself speaking, something I initially dreaded. Listening back was often uncomfortable, highlighting mistakes I didn't realize I was making. However, it was also incredibly insightful, showing me specific areas that needed improvement, a crucial self-assessment tool. Reviewing my recordings became a regular practice. I'd identify recurring errors, then dedicate time to correcting them, repeating the correct pronunciation or grammar structure until it felt natural. This objective feedback loop was vital for continuous, targeted improvement.